In this section, we're going to talk about drawing trend lines, right? Remember, the trend is your friend, the classic quote in technical analysis, right? Because when you have trends, you have established kind of patterns just in the trend of whether it's going upwards or downwards, and we can, very strong indicator, we can really trade on that. But to do that, we need to be able to draw trend lines and be able to identify and then draw the trend lines to help us make decisions around that. And trend lines are drawn with a straight line, so you're going to be drawing some straight lines here. You don't have to be old school and draw it on a piece of paper or anything like that. Your trading platform will let you kind of draw lines and connect them and move them around and do all sorts of fun stuff. So you don't have to worry about being good with drawing straight lines. I'm not good at art, so I'm glad for the computer technology. So it's done using the trading platform. And again, trends could be an upward trend or they could be a downward trend, right? In our trend lines, there will be straight lines either indicating an upward trend or a downward trend. And the thing with identifying trends and using trend lines to help you really identify those trend lines, and then we can trade off these trend lines, is it's going to give you more confidence on your buy and sell decisions, because you're now visually showing the trends and you can trade off that. And don't worry if your lines aren't perfect. I mean, they'll be nice straight lines because of the software, because of the platform, but in terms of where you place them and all that, and as you learn how to do that, that'll come with time, probably pretty quickly actually. And it's not always exact. I mean, the markets go sideways, things happen, there's outliers that happen, noise, all that kind of stuff that happens that causes a price to go up or down. So again, trend lines are not always picture perfect, but they're going to be straight lines and they're going to help you with your trading decisions. So don't worry about if your trend lines are not works of art, right? And we learned about some trend lines, or some lines actually have meaning behind them already. They're like a support line, which is the lowest price in a current trading range. So it supports the price from going lower. That's a good way to remember. It supports the price from going lower, like in this triangle you see here. Or you have resistance lines where the high price it's the highest price in the current trading range. So it resists the price from going higher. It's like a line, it's a barrier, that prevents prices from going higher. As a review on that, and they are trend lines that you can draw, as far as different types of trend lines you can draw, and you're trying to draw these trend lines to kind of get an idea of what is going on. And there's some questions around when you start thinking about trend lines that I want to kind of get ahead of right away. And so let's look at a couple things as far as the actual drawing of the trend lines. One question is, do I need to draw in a certain place? And yes and no on that. It depends. I mean, most people will draw at the top and bottom of a candle. But you can draw in the middle of the body as well too. The whole key is to be consistent. So if you're drawing at, let's say, at the tops and bottoms, don't halfway through us and start drawing in the middle. So that's not going to be consistent. That won't be accurate for you. So when we talk about the top or bottom of the candle, we're typically talking about at the wicks, at the upper and lower shadows at the far ends there, as you see demonstrated here, and you'll see demonstrated in the upcoming lesson. So that's how I do it. That's how most people do it. But there's nothing wrong with being consistent and going through the middle as well either. And the other part of this, do I need to use candlesticks? And the answer is no. You don't have to use candlesticks. You can use any type of price bar, and sometimes something like a line bar will make it easier to see a pattern, or you're going to use another indicator overlay over the top of it, such as a moving average crossover, where your trading platform will help make it easy as far as putting all that together on it. It makes it easy to switch between price bar types too. You can usually just choose a different type of price bar, you click update or something like that, and it redraws your chart all ready to go with now price bars instead of candlesticks, or excuse me, like an open, high, low, close price bar, or maybe like a line, not a trend line, but a price line, as opposed to candlesticks. So you don't have to use candlesticks. However, there's a reason people use candlesticks. We have a whole section around candlesticks. We talk a lot about candlesticks. Candlesticks are very helpful, since they can visually tell you a lot more about what's going on, like through the color of their bodies, the main body, whether it's a white or green or red, for, let's say, a downtrend, green, let's say, for an uptrend, or it might be black, whatever it might be as far as the colors in your system. Typically it's red for a downtrend, or a down day, excuse me, not a downtrend, but a down day or down period. And also things like the lengths of their wicks can tell you something. And they have their own patterns kind of within your larger, bigger chart pattern. They'll have their own patterns too that might give you some indications on what might be happening. It might confirm what you're seeing with your overall chart pattern, or it might possibly make you rethink your overall chart pattern because something is happening with the candlesticks. So I definitely would recommend that you use candlesticks, but you can switch between the different price bars depending on what might work for you at that moment in time or what you're looking to do. For example, this image here shows an uptrend. As far as, we can see it, you can see that line there, that's a trend line. It definitely has got an upward slope to it, going along the bottom as far as the range indicator, so it's going along the lows of the day. But it also is, if you recognize it from like candlesticks, it's a three-soldier candlestick pattern. So you get extra confirmation. So not only is an upward trend line a good bullish sign, or that the prices will rise, but also having, let's say, that three-soldier candlestick pattern, it kind of gives you even more an idea of, okay, this looks like a very strong trend. I'm getting it confirmed not only by the upward trend line that I've drawn, but I'm also getting it from the candlestick chart pattern. So I'm getting the idea that it might be an extra confirmation out there. Now I feel more confident in my trade. If I wasn't using a candlestick, for example, I wouldn't see that three-soldier pattern, because I wouldn't necessarily see that. So that's where candlesticks can be very, very helpful. And I would tend to recommend using them with trend lines in almost all cases, but you can switch over every once in a while too, as far as sometimes it works better with certain types of lines or certain types of prices. I think I'll actually demonstrate some of those. Well, once I draw a trend line, is it permanently fixed? Does it just stay there? It never changes or anything like that? And it typically will for certain periods of time, but in general, no. You do want to have a definite slope, and you will use straight lines and all that, but you might need to adjust those starting points or adjusting those points a little bit as things change on your chart. So it's more of a dynamic process. You might, let's say, have an uptrend, for example, and then it goes sideways a little bit, and maybe you're starting to draw another trend line to show the sideways movement, and then it goes up or it goes down. So you might have multiple trend lines on a longer term chart if you're trying to really get a feel for a longer overall pattern. So do think of trend lines as a dynamic process. So as we go through these chart patterns, you'll see us throughout the lessons drawing these trend lines, and in that part we'll get an idea of kind of where to start the trend line, where to end the trend line, when prices break through a trend line. That's what you're going to be learning all throughout this. But think about some of the basics that you learn in this part, and then as we go through the next part of the lessons and we look at continuation and reversal patterns, you'll see how we're using trend lines in the drawing of them in those lessons and how they all work together. So let's start getting into that as far as how to actually draw these lines, and more importantly, how to trade off these trend lines.